Jacque, what is your vision for the future of humankind?
It's very different than anything you've ever seen in Hollywood. My vision is that we have the possibility of building a world without poverty, hunger, war, and all the other problems that confront society today. We can solve all of those problems. It's just a matter of time, and it wouldn't take that long. It would take just a few years from the time the people say go, if they agree with the direction. The direction differs from the way you were brought up. I'm not appealing to you. I don't speak to you to win approval. I speak to you to tell you what the problems are that we face. And in a nutshell, it's paradise or oblivion. We're either going to destroy one another, the earth, in nuclear war or economic deprivation. So what I offer is a possibility for all the world's people and protection of the environment. And that essentially calls for differences in the way we conduct human affairs. I would say that in order for us to survive, we have to bring all the nations together. And we don't do it with the American way or democracy. We have to do it in ways that they understand it. I believe I understand the necessity of adjusting to many different values in order to attain a world of peace and harmony with nature. In other words, we are not separate from nature. We're part of it. What happens in nature affects us. If we destroy the oceans and the atmosphere, we destroy ourselves. So the answer to the future problems are very simple, actually. It's not complicated. We must declare all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. And we must remove all the artificial boundaries that separate people. Now, if you don't like what I'm saying, that's your problem. I do not control the future. I'm just telling you where the problems are. So I'd say that all aberrant behavior that we don't like, is produced by our society, by scarcity and deprivation. All wars are based upon retaining the values of your culture, that is, the successful people of your culture. They put out there what kept them in power. And when people run for political office, they say things people like to hear. But the basic idea is don't change anything. We like things the way they are. You cannot achieve social nucleation, that is the bringing together of all nations, and yet retain all your private values, which you've gotten over the years. I want to say this precisely, that all our language is very old. We learned this language hundreds of years ago. So it's almost impossible for people to talk to one another. We have to develop a language that has uniform interpretation, such as mathematics, chemistry, structural engineering. When engineers talk to each other, they talk about the characteristics of metal, what metal can stand in compression, torsion, tension, compression. So when engineers talk to each other, they understand each other. If bridge building and designing was subject to interpretation, you couldn't build a bridge that would stand up. So what I'm suggesting is that we use engineering scales of performance. First, we have to do a survey of what the Earth's resources are, how many factories, arable land, and maintain a population in relation to the carrying characteristics of the Earth's resources, not some opinion of a group of senators or politicians. I'm making this statement to help clarify things. All politicians are cerebral insufficients. They don't have the information necessary to stop wars. They don't know how to increase the agricultural yield. In fact, they don't know how to design buildings, bridges, or anything related to the physical needs of people. Their system was great 100 years ago, but today it's obsolete. And if we wish to build a new world, we have to base it upon a survey of existing resources and maintain a population in accordance with the carrying capacity of the earth. We also have to have the intelligent management of the earth's resources, and that can only be done through the scientific method. No matter how sincere politicians are, if their decisions are not based upon verifiable, testable evidence, it is worthless. So again, I repeat, we have to develop a language that is not subject to interpretation. Now, let me give you an example of that. When you read the Bible, some people say, well, this is what Jesus meant. Another person says, no, he meant that. And a third person has another interpretation. So you have the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jumpers for Jesus, the Catholics. You have all these different denominations because the Bible is subject to interpretation. Whenever senators get up and speak, they usually say nothing. They have nothing to say. This is the greatest country on earth. God bless America. We hope for total employment. No process level. No description of methods for solving problems. So what I hear on the part of most people is their innermost urge for peace and goodwill to all people, but no way of attaining that. How do you increase the agricultural yield? How do you prevent tsunamis? These are common problems to all people. Tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, and earthquakes kill millions of people. So what we would work on in the Venus Project is problems common to all people and bridge the difference between nations so that survivability, or such notions as survivable, not for General Motors or Bank of America or any other country. Our concepts are for all the world's people, to bring them up in the best, the cleanest environment that technology can provide. It is not a technology to control people. All that technology would control is the production and distribution of goods and services. It will not control people. Now, what I have to say about the future is that if we fail to accept responsibility for our own future, others will do our thinking for us, sometimes referred to as fascism. That is the message. In a resource-based economy, we would make all the resources of the world, that is the nations that join us, available to everyone. There would be no scientific elite or technical elite or any other type of elitism. There'd be no heroes. All people would be trained or educated to understand our relationship to nature. If you violate that relationship, it won't work. All man-made laws are artificial. We have to study our relationship to nature. If we damage the air, we damage ourselves. If we damage the oceans, we damage ourselves. If we cut down the forest, we damage our ability to maintain health. So I would say that the history of civilization is a ruthless history of men killing other men for no other reason than your God is different than mine. And they kill and murder and torture, always the same story. The history of civilization is the history of ignorance. And I would say every university in America, although better equipped than they've ever been in the past, our wars are getting worse. The bombs today are thousands of times more devastating than the bombs of the past. So what good is all this technology if you don't have the wisdom to use it to enhance the lives of everybody? Anything less than that will not work. Trying to patch up this system is artificial. It's crude, it's vulgar, it is old, it doesn't have any answers. As long as the monetary system survives, you're going to have problems. With money, yes, it does produce incentive. It also produces incentive for corruption, embezzlement, and also taking care of your friends and taking care of yourself. When people seek advantage by money, you can't have a decent world. When you have wars and people make millions of dollars selling submarines, I'm talking about billions of dollars, and aircraft carriers, then war becomes a terrific business. It's really a racket. When they conscript a person to offer their lives to defend this country, they should conscript all the war industries so no one makes a buck out of war. Then it's real. I've never known a war of that kind.
Jacque, can you describe what your future would be like?
The future? People would study whatever they wanted to study. There'd be art centers, music centers, cultural centers, open to everyone without a price tag. There'd be no banks, no investment brokers, no advertising, no commercials, no armies, no navies, no prisons, and no police. When humans have access to the necessities of life, they do not steal. If you don't understand that, imagine people living near a big waterfall with fresh water, lots of it. No one comes at night and steals water. When people have access to the necessities of life, they do not steal. This system is one of increasing debt, human suffering, and also freedom. The word freedom means you're responsible for whatever you do. I say that people are not responsible. I feel that if normal people were raised as babies by the headhunters of the Amazon, they would be headhunters. If you took a Jewish baby and raised him in Nazi Germany by a Nazi family, he would be a Nazi. That people reflect their culture. If you don't understand that, people raised in Italy speak and use their hands when they speak. Same in France. Come on, eat, it's a good food. But that is not a unique quality of the individual. That's what he picks up from his environment. If you're raised in Ireland, say you're Spanish, and you raise this baby in Ireland, you say that's a fine Irish lad. He's taking good care of his family. As fine an Irishman as you can achieve. Surely all that they say is picked up from environment. So when you're a Southerner, brought up in an uneducated region of the South, you say, I'm going to give me a nigger and I'm going to kick his ass. All that is reflective of culture. There's no such thing as individuality. All they talk about, will there be place for individuality? Will there be a place for tradition? If traditions serve useful purposes, yes. If they're obsolete and irrelevant, no.